Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Founder's Journey. This is brought to you as part of the Tech Founder Circle. I'm so excited about my next guest. He is the CEO and founder of Incued, and a great guy. His name is Josh Furstoss. Josh, so thank you for being with me today.
Hey, Michael, thank you.
You know what? I just want to get right into it. Tell us a little more. You know, what got you into entrepreneurship? What? Go back to your childhood, or whatever you need to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a difference between I think getting into entrepreneurship now for this endeavor versus the long-term thing. I think I was always someone that liked to solve problems. I knew I wanted to be an architect, which I'd say I'm not right now. When I was I don't know, 11 or 12, something like that. I just designing things, building things, tinkering with stuff. So that's kind of always been a thing of mine, and then finding wacky ways to earn additional income just growing up. But this endeavor, this came out of it's a weird one.
Was it your first one then? Did you do other things before this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've done smaller things. This is definitely the most involved.
Yeah, but even as it sounds like as a young person, you were a little entrepreneurial spirit. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And okay. What is the very first thing you did then? Let's go way
very
back.
First entrepreneurial thing I did.
Yeah.
Jeez. I was playing a lot of StarCraft. I was very into StarCraft. I was considering going professional and moving to Korea for a while.
Okay.
And I whatever, in college, I was doing coaching and stuff for that, just to make income on the side, to literally paying for early college, by going to StarCraft tournaments and doing coaching and stuff, and starting a mini kind of coaching business around that.
So you were teaching people how to do StarCraft, be successful with it. Gotcha. Yes. Okay. All right. That's great. Okay.
That's entrepreneurship.
Forward. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, moving forward from that, I think I got really into what was it? Whatever, I was just generally into technology. So I started off as a software engineering guy. I was doing computer science classes in high school. I went to a college for it, then went to software engineering, and was my first degree I went to. I ended up whatever, got really tied up with a girl, ended up not doing so hot in school, moved back home. And I got really into just the business part of it, right? And I kind of I went down and I'm oh, maybe this isn't for me, maybe this is for me. But the reality of it is I love technology. I like the idea of programming it because I wanted to be able to build things. Mm-hmm. It goes back to the architecture thing, right? I wanted to build things, but I didn't want to have to if you wanted to build a car, for example, you need all the materials to actually put it together. And the beauty of programming is that you don't need to have a bunch of raw materials slammed together. You can just do it yourself. So I knew I wanted to work in that space, but I didn't think from the actual programming standpoint is the way I wanted to do it. Because I kind of thought it was I'm just gonna have some guy tell me what to build. I'm not going to really get to do it myself. So whatever, I ended up working for Samsung, working for startups, and then finished college. And my first place out was Sprint, and hated the fucking job.
Okay.
Terrible, as an account executive. No offense to them. They don't exist anymore, actually. They've been absorbed. Then I got into working at Motorola Solutions. I actually thought it was a cell phone company because I'd worked for all of these other companies where before that, Motorola, or sorry, Samsung, Sprint, where I'm okay, I'm just in telecom. Not the case at all. I was working on intelligence mapping. I was working on surveillance for the government. I was working on physical security, something called SCADA, which is mission critical and physical infrastructure defense projects. And I got down to something with the ATF where I was working on ballistics identification. And this is kind of where this whole entrepreneurial journey started for me.
Okay.
Is when we were working on a ballistics intelligence project, I started going to all these different communities and seeing whatever, there's cycles of violence that occur within them. And I was talking to the mayors and the police, chiefs of police about how these get started, how we can not just implement the technology, but implement practices within the community and other things to ensure we can stop the cycles of violence, to help the economy grow and help people start more businesses so they can hire more people, to raise the property taxes or raise property tax gains so the schools can get better and go for that whole cycle. And that's what really got me started here. I was lucky enough to have kind of a mentor figure where his name was Gary Brewer, and his company was actually acquired by Motorola to create this ballistics arm, or not hired, but rather acquired by them. So then I was just shoved onto this team of a bunch of guys that created all this technology from literally nothing, a bunch of 50, 60-year-old dudes. And I'm flying around the country trying to solve this, trying to get this product out there. Nobody owns it yet. Nobody's talked about it yet, doing the whole go-to-market. And I wanted to find a better way to eventually help solve this problem in my own right. Because eventually this product got sold off to another company called Evidence IQ. I went over with them to that startup, had some differences with the CEO, and then was basically like fuck this, I'll do it myself. I'll fix this problem from my own angle, which it was not the ballistics intelligence angle, but rather from the community and business development angle of if we can get more people to start more businesses, we can create economic stability, and then more people can be better educated, more people can have what they need to survive, and we can stop the cycles of violence that way. I know it's very long-winded, but that's how I got here. So intelligence space, meeting a good mentor, that arm of the company getting sold off, and then difficulties with my CEO at the time, who was private equity hired and did not really understand the space we were working in. No offense, Roger. Good guy.
So now you started this one, and let's talk a little more about Incued. What exactly is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back even like this company started as something called Summarize It, and the whole idea is we thought we could break up creating a small business into like a TurboTax like process.
Okay,
yeah, that was
step by step, and
and just kind of form together, so then people would have a much easier way of like actually creating the thing. It ended up being way more complicated than that, and the profit basis there wasn't horribly huge, because like at the lower end of the market, we realized that we would need an immense amount of marketing money to actually make that happen. The actual sales outreach, because the customer base didn't have a lot of money in the first place, it just would have never made a feasible business for us.
So here's source. The whole thing was you're thinking about starting a business, use this software to help you go from your idea to whatever, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Originally it was for like loans. What Incued is now, I will work my way backwards, is Incued is a business planning tool for startups that helps connect them with capital, and has data transparency and interchange between you and capital providers. So the benefit of Incued is that not only can you build your business and plan it on this platform, but also you can do growth versus projection, like projections versus actuals on here as well. And you can have direct insight to like your board members or to your fundraisers. So instead of you having to prepare a bunch of documents every week for your board meeting, they have that complete transparency into your business, so they can manage their portfolio better. You can communicate with them easier. It cuts down on an immense amount of time on your side and makes them be able to better mitigate risk in their portfolio. If it makes sense, like you spend,
So in the beginning, it was start from beginning. Now you're much farther along in the process. This is when people are looking for money.
Exactly. Well, it's not just looking for money. So like,
or they have money. It's keeping that relationship good, and everyone.
Yeah, we think about it as like the pre-seed startup who's like about to raise, to like somebody who's raised money and is in a later process, but isn't like maybe they have under 50 to 100 employees. You know what I'm saying? One of those rounds where before you can get, because our competitors really are like S&P's Hyperion, like these really, really big bulky solutions that people can use in large enterprises, so that they have like ERP transparency and like can see the whole process at that level. But for startups or for smaller SaaS businesses, that transparency does not currently exist.
And so you saw the hole in the market and filled that hole basically.
Yeah, I mean, we almost like, the funniest thing about it, I was like, we wanted to build a really simple business in the beginning, and then it kind of just like the further we got into it, and we were in the right place at the right time. We were one of the first people in an incubator during the pandemic. So they were doing the remote hybrid for the first time, trying to figure it out. They were fumbling. Like, we had a great time doing it, but it was clear like this. I'm sure you remember. It was like, we're going to go back into the office next week, in a month, in 2 months, right? Like, exactly. So they're making it up as they go. And then we're realizing very quickly what the problems that their mentors and advisors and investors and stuff are facing. Because with us being outside of that environment, they have no insight into actually what these startups are doing. And then there was a bunch of communication problems between the startups and the advisory team, and how those lessons are being taught and how those connections are being made, and understanding someone's business when you're not with them in the room and they can't just like draw on a piece of paper and stuff. So we pivoted just based off of how the pandemic affected like business communication, and it just kind of grew from there.
So is almost like so is they're getting like a snapshot and in depth at any one time? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, because previously what was happening is like they'd have like a website and you'd kind of just like put in like you're like, here's my problem, here's the solution, here's like my financial forecast like on an Excel document. But none of that kind of grows with you. And then it's also a lot of work as the founder because you're like updating this vague thing online that doesn't really benefit you in any way. It's kind of just a secondary location that you're putting it on there for their benefit, but it doesn't help you personally. So kind of our fix to that was to be an agnostic tool of its own, where it provides the founder with all the business planning and strategy stuff from an actual application
dashboard going on there that's showing the
yeah. So they can get all the information they're already looking for, and it's actually benefiting you to fill it out and to use it.
Okay.
Because otherwise it was just like, it was annoying, to be frank.
Yeah, sometimes when like I can think about different people that have to just give it upper management if they're working for somebody or whatever. That was what it was. But most of them were like one way and they didn't care. Yeah. That was both ways. They both value.
Exactly, because it's the fact that like founders spend, I forget what it is exactly. I think it's like 2 to 4 days a month preparing documentation for their board. And you extrapolate that over a year. It's like a month of your time a year you're wasting. And if those people are investors in you and you just ask them straight up like, hey, like your founding team wastes a month every year making documents for you guys to present to you guys, which they already understand, but are they just putting it in a palatable format for you? These people could be developing product or selling product or doing things that actually hit the ROI of their investment, but instead they're making paperwork. Yeah.
Do you ever find that because of the solution you have, that founders it actually opens their eyes as well? I mean, maybe they didn't realize it until it gets there. Like, oh, I guess we are doing well. We're not doing well, or what? Does it help them that way?
Yeah, well, I think that when we've had really amazing people on our team that have done this for a long time. I should probably note that, where like a lot of the benefit comes from like we have people that have been advisors and VCs and all these things that work in incubators and started incubators on our team. But yeah, I think a lot of it gives founders, specifically at the early stage, some good insight on maybe how they should go about planning. One of the biggest things is like we prompt them to look at the problem before the solution and like how to identify a good problem, what makes a good problem statement. And then when you're doing the solution part of it for like writing that business plan, it's like, okay, don't just make one solution, make 3 solutions and then like try to figure out the pros and cons between those. Because I think that a lot of times, and I'm a victim of this, I've done this before in my life, is like start a business where you have a great idea. But the thing is that it's an idea, it's not really a solution to a problem. And the thing is that you can sell solutions, but you can't sell ideas as easily. So it's about, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, there's benefits to founders. The same thing with finances. Like I know that earlier on for me, one of the biggest difficulties was people would be like, oh, do a market size projection or do a financial projection. And because this isn't based off of like actual numbers, like your actual sales and stuff, especially at like the early stages, it's really hard to understand the quality or the level of depth they're looking for. You're like, here's my Sam, Tam, and Sum. And they're like, well, we actually wanted it to be this much detail. And I've learned that there's kind of an art to presenting that data. And then there's a level of quality that people are looking for, but there's no class in like your business degree for your bachelor's. It's like, here's how to do a market size for a startup. You know what I'm trying to say? Or like a YouTube video you look up and they're like, here's a Sam, Tam, and Sam. And they're like, generally this is how you do it, but nobody's gonna explain it for your specific market, which might not even exist in reality yet. You know, like if you're trying to make a cement company, it might be like, oh, well, here are comparable cement companies. But if you're trying to make like, I don't know, what's something that doesn't exist right now? AI driven like spaceship company. You're like, what is the market for this? You're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're like,
that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So as you're going through this, tell me early successes, setbacks, lessons learned, that kind of stuff. What's going on there?
Don't hire your friends. That one sucked. That was like, so I started the business and we were just like casual. We were working on Summarize It and we're like doing this part-time, and I was just working with a bunch of friends to make it happen. And I don't want to say don't work with your friends, but you'll soon realize who's committed to this and who isn't, right? Who this is a side project for and who this is a business for. And we had to dissolve the entire company because we gave up equity to different people to like split it up to make it even, because we assumed that everyone would be putting in the same amount of work, and that very much was not the case. And then it's like some people would want to quit their jobs to pursue it and some people didn't. And then you're like, what? And they're like, well, you have to pay me out for this ownership. And you're like, this company doesn't even make money. Like, what do you, yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So be very careful handing out equity. Consider vesting agreements. Like look into this stuff before you just do that. Agree on stuff before you
those friendships, by the way. Were you able to salvage the friendships or not?
About what?
Were you able to salvage the friendships or not?
Yeah, no, we're cool now. Everyone learned a bunch. I think it was more or less the thing where there was difficulty, and I think it took us like coming back and like group events with other friends to like be like, okay, like we were both being dumb and emotional over something stupid, like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't know if the friendship will ever be as close.
Yeah.
But maybe it's actually deeper, if it makes any sense.
Yeah. It's evolved. That's for sure.
Yes, it's a different friendship than it was. Like we're never going to be like, I don't know if like you can just like invite them over, play video games and get drunk anymore. Because there's like, but I think that like we have deeper, more meaningful conversations when we do run into each other.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a different friendship.
Yeah.
Different relationship.
But so be careful who you work with a business with. Sounds like that way. Make sure.
Well, it also creates a hierarchy, man. Like if, for example, like if you hire someone like and you're their superior and you are friends with them as an equal, right? Quickly, what it turns into is like you have this, your friendship dynamic dramatically shifts that person because they see you as your boss.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just whatever. Be careful about that.
Yeah. Okay. And then so that sounds like that was the setback, had to dissolve business, start all over basically. Yeah. What about some successes? What was some early successes you like? This was a good early win.
Early wins was getting really, really amazing people to join. So do not hire friends. Do get an early board of advisors. I was able to get a bunch of people on for 0.25% equity with a 1-year cliff over 4 years. That were incredibly well skilled in their industry. And really what's the most beneficial thing is having people around you who aren't going to necessarily tell you what to do, but can help answer some of the questions and give you guidance so you understand the path to go down. We all need mentors. We need people who have done it before. You're not going to get a ton of support from, I'd say, I don't want to say normal people, but the average person, because a lot of them don't have the problems or the struggles emotionally or day to day that you're going to have. Just be like, just take a day off. Just don't do this. And you're like, no, that's not. If I take a day off, nothing happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, surround yourself by people who not only are passionate about entrepreneurship, but like the idea and are willing to help. And then you're going to get a lot of advice from a lot of people. And it's not that the advice is bad or good. It's just you got to do a good job of sifting out which advice to take. You can't take everyone's advice, but you have to take some people's. So I think of it as like almost like you take all the advice combined, you know, and you kind of consolidate it. And you're like, okay, these are what these people think. This is what I think personally. Let's weigh it against this. If everyone says this is stupid, then maybe there's something I should rethink about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you brought that up. I recently had a friend who's a very, very successful friend, but he was a successful manager. I mean, extremely successful, right? But he was an entrepreneur, and so and sometimes they struggle trying to convince, you know, if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, they'll tell you don't do it. You know?
Oh yeah, but they have different life goals than you. I think that like what I've learned about most people is most people just want to do a little bit better than their parents. Like that is most people's goal in life. And I think entrepreneurs have a weird thing about them where they want to solve problems or do things, or their major driving factor seems to be freedom, not necessarily success, as strange as that sounds. Success
money might be the byproduct or whatever, but
Yes.
it's not the that's not
Yeah, it's not the underlying thing.
yeah. That makes sense.
So I think that those people have really good advice for
Yeah.
people that want to do things like them. But it's the same way that it's like if you had an uncle who was a firefighter and you didn't want to be a firefighter and you're like, how do I become an architect? And he's like, I think this way,
Yes.
right? But he doesn't know anyone who's ever done that.
That's right.
So like, why are you taking this guy's advice?
Yeah.
If you want to get advice from that guy on managing people, then maybe he's a good guy to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's not. There's also a difference between like talking to someone who's like managed people from a company that's already existed versus thinking about someone who's like hiring their first hires and is like they're looking for really good candidates. You're looking for people who you can develop and build into the next leaders in your company at an early stage. And you're also looking for people who want to wear like a bunch of different hats and like do all kinds of different things, not someone that's like you can fit into a small little cube and be like, you are going to execute so well at this individual thing. Like you're the world's best salesperson.
Yeah.
You know? So I think you take the advice, but you also take it with a grain of salt and you acknowledge their bias.
Yeah. So maybe the one more thing would be advice. So you got somebody who they got an idea.
Yeah.
What would be the best advice you would give them at that stage? I mean,
make a mock-up. I think you can get if it's a software product, get a mock-up of it done. $15 on like Fiverr, you can get someone from like wherever to do like a UI UX mock-up. Put it on a piece of paper. Write some text around it to basically pitch your idea, the problem that you're facing and the solution that you're providing for it, and then ask some people if they'd actually buy it.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
And just pretend it's real.
Yeah.
Just like if they buy it, then it'd be like, okay, what would you pay me to build this thing?
Yeah.
Or not even to build this thing, but what would you pay for this? Right. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah. And think it out. And also you're gonna get it wrong like 1,000 times. Like we're probably gonna get it wrong. So moving forward on some new productization. So like you being told no, like the first thing you want to do is validate your problem before you validate anything else. You're like, is this an actual real problem that anyone has that isn't me? Or am I just like exacerbating a problem because I'm looking for a problem so hard?
Yeah. I love that. Validate the problem first. That's great.
Problem real? Do people actually hate this? And like, do they not just hate it, but like, is it something that they would pay money to have fixed?
Yeah.
And then two,
or is it something just
like validate the solution? Like, does this actually solve the problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a book. Is there a book that was for you life-changing or one that would you highly recommend to somebody who going on this journey?
I think this is going to be silly, but there's two, right?
Yeah.
So 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss is really good, and this other book, Tools to Titans, is really good. I'll get the book I actually recommend. Give me a second. Okay. Found him. Okay, we have Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Great book.
Yeah.
Just that was good. Business Model Generation, also great book. Also great coffee table book. It's very colorful, lots of pictures. But what I like about this is it goes through. This is a slightly more dry read. This big pictures will explain to you how to like actually do your business model, understand the problem, understand a market. Because it's like, okay, does that problem exist? Now, what is the market for that problem? You know, how to validate that, how to design different models, how to do ideation correctly, how to explore ideas. This book's really freaking good.
Okay.
So that's Business Model Generation by, I'm struggling with his name, but I know I found it on Amazon. Alexander Osterwalder and Yevs Pigner. We're gonna go with that.
Okay.
But good book. They did a great job.
Okay. Well, I love it. So I think that sounds like a great book, and so I'm gonna actually order that one.
$15, man. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you so much, Josh. I tell you, so if somebody wants to get a hold of you, learn more about your business, what would they do?
Josh at Incued.com is my email address. They can add me on LinkedIn where I'm pretty active, which is just Josh Furstoss. Last name is Furstoss. Besides that, I technically have a Twitter. I haven't used it, but I could probably use more people on there. I think it's just at Josh Furstoss.
As far as
Yeah,
is Incued.com is where they would go to learn more about your business. Is that right?
that's correct. If they're a front end business, if they are, if you're a board of directors or incubator accelerator, we have lots of things we're doing in that market for management of post program and management of your portfolio companies. There, I just recommend to contact Josh at Incued.com. We're adding a page in the website soon to go over that product.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks so much, and I really appreciate it, and look forward to see you at another event.
Awesome. Talk to you soon. Thank you, Michael.